So, start date 3/17/2020. I'm gonna copy this and repost it so it gets more views with more thought, some wise common sense to the whole big picture of what's been going on in reality. In the real world, all up until this invisible thing that's only the government seems to be able to see and their little agents. Other than that, the rest of the world don't see it. And anyways, I'm not going to take away or add to what he has to say since I'm copying this. I'm going to repost it, mirror it, or whatever you want to call it. So here we go.
Hello, my friend. So, a lot of people have made claims about the coronavirus and possible deceptions that are occurring around how this virus is being reported. There's questions as to where the virus really originated, whether it was made in a lab, whether it was a bioweapon, whether it was released on accident. There are questions as to the extent of the virus, how many people have been infected, whether they're covering it up or whether they're over-reporting it, the death rate, how fatal the virus is. All of these questions are up in the air. And I don't really have a clear answer for that. There's no way for me to check or verify because all the information that I've gotten, or most of the information, is through the mainstream media, and the alternative media as well, which gets most of its information from mainstream establishment sources anyway. And those are known to be deceptive. They're known liars, so there's no way for me to truly verify the information that I'm obtaining from them. But what I do know is the great deception of the coronavirus. The great deception is that people suddenly believe, and people who used to be extremely critical of the government and the elites that control the governments of the West and of the world in general, suddenly people believe that these governments are out to help us, that they really want to help us. And the debate is about how they're going to go about helping us, whether they should have closed the borders sooner, whether they should have mandatory vaccines, whether they should provide treatment for free, all these different debates that are going on, and whether it's such a good thing that certain governments have closed their borders, things of that nature. It's all about how are these governments going to help us? How should they help us and help the situation? That, I think, is the great deception. That people suddenly have this fantasy that these governments, which are fully controlled from the top down by an elite oligarchy that just wants full control, godlike power over society, and most likely has a depopulation agenda for the world, that this entity is meant to help us? Like they're actually going to help us? That, I think, is the true deception. We cannot forget that the governments of the West, in particular, are controlled by an oligarchy of criminal psychopaths that has never been brought to justice. They're not there to help us. And we shouldn't be celebrating the idea that, certain countries have closed their borders temporarily to halt the spread of this virus. Celebrating that is missing the point. I mean, they're not really our friends. They're not doing these things to help us. And whatever events appear to be in our favor as traditional nationalistic individuals. Whatever events or actions they take which appear to be in our favor, we should be highly skeptical of. And never forget that all of these countries and their governments are controlled by a criminal oligarchy that has been trying to wipe out the existence of our people for decades now, or centuries, I should really say. That is my take on this issue. Alright, never forget who is in control of these governments that everyone is looking to and debating about how they should help us. Thank you for watching. One thing I will add is that regardless of what's going on with the coronavirus, you should be prepared for the collapse. I've been advocating preparedness and survivalism for years, so it doesn't really matter what the situation is with coronavirus. You should be ready for this regardless. So don't think I'm telling people to not be prepared for something bad, because I've been saying they should be for years. So thank you for watching.